everyone, and welcome to Ascend Into Your Power, a podcast all about things metaphysical, alien, dimensional, channeling, mediumship, really anything that you can think of that goes outside of the matrix, that breaks the status quo, breaks the box that society tries to put us in to keep us in. This podcast is for you, and I'm your host, Chelsea, the Starseed Medium. I'm an ascension guide, a remote viewer, extra-dimensional channeler, and medium. And each week, we will be diving into a subject that really breaks us apart from the matrix. So if you're ready to step out of the 3D and teleport into another dimension, welcome to Ascend Into Your Power. Hello, Starseeds, and welcome back to another episode of Ascend Into Your Power. Today, I have the lovely Peter, Blue Collar Spiritualist, on Instagram and TikTok. I actually found him on TikTok randomly, just came up on my feed, and he was like, if you want a reading, comment below. And I was like, I think I should. So I was like, hi, I'm Chelsea. I commented, and then he did like a mini reading for me, and it was so spot on. It's ridiculous. And since then we just like connected and we were vibing, and then I was like, you should come on the podcast. So here he is on the podcast. Yeah. Peter, if you would like to introduce yourself and just kind of tell the people a little bit about you.
So I'm a medium, I guess you could call me. I do a little shamanic work as well, but since a young kid, I had the ability to kind of connect to spirit. But when I was younger, I was kind of scared of it. It kind of intimidated me. I had I remember an actual experience where I saw a young boy in somebody's house, like a friend's house, and nobody else saw it, and it kind of like shook me. And I actually remember saying, like, don't ever do that to me again, Yeah. And I kind of blocked it for a while. And in my 20s, my grandmother died, who was like the matriarch of our family. And, I started having experiences with her. First kind of starting out with dreams, and then, shifting to having full-on experiences with her. And I actually wound up going to see, somebody brought me to see a medium one night at somebody's house. They hosted like a mediumship night. This was probably like 15 years ago. And
wow, it's a while.
Yeah. So as soon as I walked in the room, she knew my name, and she's like, are you Peter? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, your grandmother has been with me for like the last month, like bothering me to find you and talk to you. Wow. And as soon as she said that, I could feel like my grandmother standing next to me.
Yeah.
Like really, it like clicked, it like clicked back on to like the full extent. And it like shifted my whole reality. And I got high from like the connection, like when you first really start building that connection. And because at the time I was probably in a lower vibration, I was going through a lot of stuff in my life, denser, heavier emotions, and then you have that instant connection, and it kind of raises you. And it's like, oh my God, like, this is really happening. Like, I feel this. And, from her, we actually wound up, she was like, she was a 60-year-old, like, widowed woman. That's how she got connected to spirit, is her husband passed, and she tried to like connect to him. And, I'm in my 20s, she's like 60 and widowed, and like, we became best friends. And like, she kind of mentored me and kind of, taught the basics of connecting to spirit. And then from
Mm.
there, my grandmother would kind of, from the other side, navigate me into healers and teachers and mentors and different experiences. And, I'm here now, just from
Yeah.
these different experiences.
That's so cool. So I know, like me personally, I went through a lot, and a lot of the other people that I've had on here, as far as um are that are in this line of work too. Like my friend Paul was just on, and he talked about like his like alcoholism, and how like from there it brought him out into spirituality. And I've had like kind of similar things, like repeat traumas that ended up bringing me to spirituality. So would you say like based on what you're saying, it's like the grief that you had from your grandmother kind of helped you to bring you out of spirituality in a way? Or did you feel like there was multiple things that helped you on that? There's a loaded
I think
question.
I was just like, I kind of felt lost at the time in my life as well. And I think, there was nothing that really fulfilled me in a sense, I
Mhm.
guess, or like I wasn't, um, I don't know, I just was like maybe angry and like not really where I wanted to be. And plus her death, she was kind of like the matriarch. She kind of was the glue that kind of held the whole family together in a way, because my grandfather died when my mom was a young kid. So she was always kind of the one who like directed the family. And then when she
Mhm.
passed, a lot of the family kind of spread out and kind of didn't stay together. So it was definitely a very heavy passing in a way. Um, and it really like affected my family. So yeah, I mean, I think her death was definitely a spark, you know,
Yeah.
and coupled with kind of feeling lost and not really sure of myself in terms of where I was going in life, you
Yeah.
know.
I've I totally get that, because I think that was kind of like the breaking point for me before I went into like getting called to ayahuasca, and trying to figure out my who I am. And like I think I've noticed like a lot of like patterns every time I talk to people, which is kind of like I was feeling lost. I didn't know who I was. Like I was feeling like kind of like overwhelmed, or um like there was a pivotal moment in my life that happened that really shifted me. So I think it's pretty cool to see that we all kind of have some similarities in a way, but we're all also very different people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I mean, I think we're just looking for meaning, and I think that's where it starts, is like that search for deeper meaning, and like
yeah,
kind of starting to see through the veil of illusion and realizing like, a lot of the things we are programmed to believe is bullshit. And,
yeah,
starting to see that, and then, searching for something that's, maybe not bullshit, like God or spirit, or just a deeper level of meaning for this reality.
yeah. I've noticed a lot of your because you channel a lot of information from like the past, and like you're very interested in like our history, just what I've seen from like your page and things. So I'm fascinated by that as well. Like I just remember like wanting to be an archaeologist for forever, wanting to know more about cultures and anthropology. So I was like nerding out, like reading like a lot of the things that you posted. So like, did you have that same feeling too, or are you
Yeah, I
just
mean,
like,
I remember always being, well, I was always my father did construction, but he like traveled a lot around the world and stuff when he was younger. And I remember being a kid and him like telling me about Egypt, and I was like always obsessed with Egypt before I even really knew what it was. Like it just was so like interesting. You know, of course, Indiana Jones, but like I think I've always been obsessed with like more like outside the box or like taboo. You know, I was always reading, like I remember always taking like ghost books out of the library or UFOs and kind of, I don't know. I remember always feeling like I wasn't from here, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I feel like I always dismiss that as like being Aquarius because I feel like
Oh, you're an
Aquarius are always like
That's
weird
right.
people and like kind of, naturally like think they're different, you
Yeah.
know? But I remember um like I love music and I loved Jim Morrison and I would listen to I remember listening to Jim Morrison and like listening to the song The End on repeat and I would like meditate to that song for some reason. It just like put me in
Interesting.
this weird space. And I remember like sitting and I would always like meditate and look at my hands. I don't know. This was like when I was like 16 and I remember thinking like where am I? Like I'm not, this isn't like my body or something,
Yeah.
like or having that realization of like maybe even being spirit and just like looking at like my physical body and not feeling like I belonged in it or something.
Yeah, like from the astral plane, kind of like having that
Yeah.
mini out of body experience, but like you're not sleeping.
Yeah, I used to always be
Weird.
obsessed with like astral projection and like I remember like specific experiences of like trying to project and like coming out of my body when I was like, I remember being in my parents' house and laying in my bed and my body, when I used to do it, my body would like shake and then all of a sudden I would like release. And I remember like specific moments and I would always get, when I was like 10 to like 20, I would get random sleep paralysis
Yeah.
and like wondering, like trying to figure out what the hell that is, and like I remember even talking to my like pediatrician or my doctor about it because I was like, this happens. And he's like, oh, um, he pretty much dismissed it as like, there's a part in your brain that like shuts your body off when you sleep physically. And that, sometimes you wake up and that thing is still on, you know? But I mean, I don't know. I remember working through sleep paralysis, like having those experiences and then like learning how to get out of it.
Yeah.
Like you fight that like no, I'm awake, like I can be free and like breaking out of it like with like your will, you know?
Well, I've realized that when that happens, like your spirit body is not back in your physical body yet. Like it wasn't ready to come back. Like you weren't ready to wake up yet because we all have like well, not everyone has a double mission, but you're probably a double missioner like me. So we're like off fighting battles in our sleeps or like helping like collectively other timelines and or other dimensions where because that's like kind of what we signed up for, if you will. But I've realized when I do it, like I was like in some deep stuff in my dream and somebody woke me up and I like couldn't like move because my spirit was still in that other area. And then when I would go back to sleep, I would go right back to where I was. Like when I closed my eyes again, like, no, like I'm not ready yet. I close my eyes again, I'd go right back to exactly where I was. I'd finish and then I'd come back and it's done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, this is weird to realize now.
Well,
What
it's
is
also
this?
funny is like, through my life, I've talked like I always attract people kind of seeking spiritual stuff, like random people, like a guy I work with will just start talking to me about God and stuff like that. And I've noticed that when people start like waking up, they start having sleep paralysis experiences. So there's something there that goes hand in hand with like waking up, you know?
Yeah. Does did you grow up like really religious as a child too, or were you like, how was your family? Because I know my family was super religious, and that was part of the like part of my struggle breaking into spirituality, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, because like it was like at first they didn't know. They were like, you're speaking in tongues, this is like the devil. you
Yeah.
know like, you, what, are you sure like you're talking to X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, I'm sure. Like, I remember seeing Granddaddy Buyer in the house when I was 13, and you all told me I was crazy, but I described word for word what he was wearing, like, and you guys like played it off like I'm crazy. And no, like I'm actually talking to them now. And then I'd give them like specific examples and then like start to believe me, but they're still like, this isn't what's said in the Bible. But then, like, now I'm like looking at the Bible and reading the Bible, and I'm like, no, here it says Christ is within you. Here it says da 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 da. And I think it like helps, but also they just still don't want to believe me. So I'm just like, whatever, guys. Okay. So I don't know if you had like that
Yeah.
with yours or.
I was raised Catholic. Like, my mom, we would go to church. We always kind of went to church, once a week. It wasn't like we were like super involved, but, we went to church. My grandmother on my father's side, I'm Italian. They're very like, she would go to church every day. I was definitely raised Catholic with like, I went to Catholic like catechism, which is like, the like Sunday school type thing.
Mhm.
I actually, one of my first big experiences was with Jesus, you know, and it was actually at Sunday school. The priest actually, I don't know, for some reason, I guess they were forward thinking at the time, because this was, it had to be in like the 90s. He did a meditation where you connected with Jesus, and
Oh,
I remember it was like a candle meditation. You would like
okay.
focus on a candle, and then you would
Oh, like
slowly, like, he kind of worked you into what?
it just reminds me of like a Buddhism practice, but continue, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, and then you were supposed to like sit on a bench, and Jesus was supposed to show up. And I remember sitting there and like feeling like that energy of like Jesus, and this like warm like filled my body. To this day, I remember how it felt.
Oh, the
And it was
energy
like the
is
first
like,
experience. And I never really shared it with anyone. Yeah, like see, my thing is I'm very I'm more outspoken now, but I'm very internal. So I don't really like, I won't share stuff unless it's like really, I don't know, like I keep a lot of it in,
yeah.
because I feel like a lot, I'm intense, so like if
No, I
if
love it.
I
Be intense
share
on here
everything.
today. No, like
No.
while
I
you
mean,
were
I'm no, I'm more
sorry.
outspoken now, but I'm saying when I was like younger, I wouldn't really tell people
I
what
get
I'm
that.
feeling,
I get that.
And like my dad was a very like stoic, like hardworking, like old school Italian. Like, you didn't talk about your emotions, Like, I don't think I don't think I've seen him cry once, you
Yeah,
know. So
I get
like,
that.
it was always, he's not somebody that you go, oh, this is what I'm feeling. And my mom was just, I don't know, like, I just didn't, my mom's a Leo, so she's very like role based,
Oh,
structured, like traditional, like, you know,
oh
if you're
wait,
having weird
here.
experiences, you're different.
Your energy,
But
like since you started talking about Jesus, like it keeps like glitching your feed. So like your
really?
feed was like the Wi-Fi on your end
Uh,
was, or maybe it's my Wi-Fi, I don't know. But like since you started talking about that experience with Jesus, like it started going like like wonky. So maybe this ground a second.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel
Happens
like
all the time.
just from thinking about the experience, I could feel the energy in my heart,
Yeah.
you know? So
What?
it was definitely like, whoa, what was that? Like that was very like personable, you know, like
Yeah.
so it was you know, so I always like I never looked at necessarily like religion as the answer. Like I never thought to think like, you know, this old man in the priest costume you know, is going to tell me like my connection to God. You know,
Yeah.
like it never even like made sense to me. Like how it always was like I don't understand how people think this way.
Yeah.
You know, like your relationship with God is between you and God. You know, it's not some other person who's going to tell. Like it was like so ridiculous when people like the thought that would people would even believe that, you know?
Yeah, no, and I totally 1000%. That's one of the biggest things that I've been preaching preaching about lately. Whoa, deja vu, weird. And one of the things that I've been like talking about and preaching about lately is the fact that the church boxes you in too. Like that is a really big like hub for like suppression. And a lot of people don't realize that because it's like because your pastor and like the pastor and preacher is almost idealized as having a better connection to like God than you do. And like it's not the case, you know? And then like a lot of the times I find like even I've talked about this before, like even in some parts of the Bible where there's like a lot of like fear mongering and if you're this, then you're bad. If you're this, then you're bad. But you know, I think sometimes with religion, we have to remind ourselves that even the Bible, the scriptures were taken and then rewritten to make the Bible. So, like, sometimes we have to go back and reread the original scriptures and then also the ones that were omitted from the Bible to begin with that have like a lot of the truth in them. Um, so I think it's like very interesting. And this isn't like all people who are religious. I don't want to get like beat up on later. Like, I don't really care. But it's like you have to notice the pattern that you see. And it's like most of the people that are in religious are very like, oh my God, like I got a tattoo, I'm a sinner. Oh my God, I did this, I'm a sinner. Like it's just no, like if you read the Bible, it talks about how God and Jesus washes the feet of the sinners. They love all their children. Like it's not really talking anything about like, you know, like you're a bad person or anything. And I think it's also interesting to see where like Christianity, Catholicism, all of the like Buddhism, Muslims, all of the religions are pretty much exactly the same. They have like God, they have like the chosen son, right? And then they have like apostles or gods, goddesses, like however you want to describe them, but they all have similar characteristics. Like even archangels are very similar to gods and goddesses if you look really deeply into like the story behind each one of them. And like I'm a Scorpio moon, so I can get really researchive into a lot of things. And I got like a lot of Aquarius in my chart too. So it's just like very interesting to see like if you really dive into each thing and like deconstruct it and just like put it face value next to each other, you'll realize like these are the same things. Even when I see like gods and goddesses and deities and how they're represented in different cultures, like they're the same person. Like Mary Magdalene is very similar to Isis, you know, like Freya, very similar. Like, and it all just like trickles. And then it makes you think, like, are these really the same people that started all of this? And how crazy is that these same gods and goddesses are across different places in the world, right? It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I look at like you know, even like like Jesus, Mary, Isis, whatever, it's all limited. It's actually limiting God, because really God is like the infinite and the abyss, or the grand, the grand perspective, or the supreme reality. Like each of these um deities are really just a focused expression of God. So it's like, I like to connect to different deities and stuff like that, but in a way, you're also like limiting your perception of God. Like if you're looking at Jesus, he's like the masculine, the son, he's that limited perception, but there's so much more to God, because God to me is all encompassing. God is everything. God is us. God is everything existing at any moment. So it's like when you put it into like a religion, you kind of limit, even the power of it, because it's one perspective.
Yeah. When you were talking about that, I checked my phone and it was 234. So Spirit would like to confirm that.
Thank you,
And
Spirit.
I believe that like Christ consciousness, like even like the word Christ consciousness is kind of like limiting too, but it's just realizing that God is like within you. So like you're your own like God or goddess, if that makes sense. So that I feel like that also like we look to channel in like these deities or archangels and all that stuff, but that is also like how you're saying it is like we're also a reflection of God on our own too. So really we have the capabilities and the capacities to unlock our DNA to get to the point of like being an ascendant master or being like a goddess or god or deity on earth, which I think is really cool too, because that all comes with knowing like you're one with God, essentially.
Yeah, or you are God,
Yeah.
having a physical experience as
Yeah.
a human.
Yeah. And people said Kanye West was crazy, but I was like, no, he's very accurate.
I love Kanye West.
I love Kanye West too. He's just like a channeling like left and right.
Yeah.
A lot, even when I listen to his songs, like some like the older music, not like the middle part, like older to now, I'm like, whoa, like not when he was on medication, older and then to now, like, whoa, like this is super like crazy downloads coming through like the beats of the actual music. Um, and so I think it's cool too. I like don't even know where to go from there because I feel like this was great. We can end it now. No, tell us more about what you do because you're multifaceted.
So it's kind of been like a spiraling path, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
I kind of, with the mentor I spoke about before, she kind of got me into, the first thing I really was big into was like Esther Hicks, and like just kind of learning like your emotions or your guidance system for like where you are in this reality, and kind of the basics of manifestation, not very like detailed, but I was really into her. I would read her books, I would listen to her all the time. And that kind of helped me navigate into like a higher baseline for my vibration, and kind of just really worked on mediumship. And then I actually got connected with a spiritualist minister who was a medium. And that's a lot of people don't even really know about the religion of spiritualism. It was started in New York with the Fox sisters, but there was always controversy because they said the Fox sisters were fake. But there's Lilydale in upstate New York where it's all like mediums. It's a town. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No, tell me
You never
more.
heard of Lilydale?
No, tell me more.
Oh, so well, I live in Long Island, but spiritualism was a religion founded by these two sisters who were connecting to this gentleman who passed in their house in, like, I don't know, the 1800s. I'm probably butchering that with dates. but it was kind of like a religion that kind of accepted all religions, but they thrived on like mediumship and healing and stuff like that. So I got into the church and got into like doing public demonstrations and all that, and I was into that. And then I kind of shifted into like a shamanic path. I got connected to a shaman and kind of learned different things through her, and learned how to, she told me like one of my purposes was to deal with people passing, like helping people pass, helping stuck spirits pass, help people release attachments. And I kind of went through like a whole, I don't know, 2-3 year period where I would just clear attachments that were, it was like an initiatory period. And I would kind of like clear attachments off myself, and pretty much thought I was going crazy, schizophrenic, all that stuff. Like I just was in another reality half the time. And I kind of worked my way through that. And, I've seen clients for kind of both healing and shamanism and mediumship. And then I kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with Jessa Reed.
I'm like a brand new baby into all of this.
Okay, so Jessa Reed is this, she was a comedian. I was just on her podcast, but she was a comedian who told this story about how like she was addicted to meth and she had a near-death experience where she met like aliens and all this stuff, and kind of opened up spirituality, and kind of, she has her own podcast, whatever. But somebody got me a session with her first before, and she kind of, my whole thing was that I've wanted to kind of quit my blue collar job because I'm tired of like suffering and stuff like that, and do this more full time. And I always kind of dismissed the blue collar aspect, like I don't want to be part of that. But she was the one who gave me the idea of like feeding into it, because like that's who you are authentically.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've been on TikTok and this, and it kind of blew up,
Yeah, I like it because it shows that a man like as rugged and like as blue collar, if you will, as you are, can also have spirituality. Like you don't have to just be like, so like you said before, like your father barely talked about emotions, barely talked about like maybe cried once in his life. And that's like how you see the typical like construction working male, or like somebody that's like a plumber, or like, like that stereotypical man. And it's like, why can't they have feelings? Why can't they have emotions? Why can't they be into spirituality and like want more from themselves? So I personally loved it when I saw.
Thanks. Well, it's funny because like the crew that I work with, I've kind of been with for a long time, and it's like they're all spiritual in their own way, even like I have this, if he ever listens to this, I have this old man, Richie, who works with me, and he's like in his 60s, and he like meditates on his own and kind of does like self-healing on himself. I've gone to some of their houses and done clearings and readings and stuff like that. So it's like they're out there. It's just like I feel like that aspect is kind of shut off for some reason,
Yeah. Recently I've been noticing just like the suppression of femininity in general, like the suppression of feminine energy in general, because if we allow ourselves to have the balance of feminine and masculine energy, and it's not so much like you need to be feminine like that, it's just the energy of like nurturing and loving and caring and flowing, not being in so control masculine, right? So it's like, that is like the key, like having both sides allows you to like accept both sides. And then that's how you come into like oneness with self. So like, it's really suppressed in men because they want the men to suppress the women's femininity, so that like femininity in general is just suppressed throughout. So you can see it in like media, you can see it in some relationships, not all, like men that are embracive of that like gentleness and that nurturing side, they're usually the ones that you see the feminine rise and be like this beautiful, like powerhouse person.
Yeah.
I've just noticed it a lot recently. And with like the feminine awakening that's happening right now, like I feel like we're going to start to see a lot of like divine masculine shortly coming up, like really strong and a good balance of like both and all people.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, you know, the more, just because you do mediumship or whatever doesn't I've in the beginning I realized didn't really necessarily mean you work on yourself, you know? And I think the real work is kind of looking at every aspect and like accepting it, like surrendering to like all the aspects of yourself, even the ones that, you may be consider like more shadow or darkness. And it goes even to the feminine and masculine. It's like if you learn to accept all the aspects, it's like it's like a reflection. So if you're accepting all your aspects, whatever it is, your shame, anything, guilt, anger, all these things that just are you inherently, whether it's good or bad, it's like it's easier for you in turn to accept other people. It's like reality is reflective. So, the more you accept yourself and love yourself for whoever you are, whether you're 60-40, feminine, masculine, whatever it is, as long as you're learning to like accept where you're at, in turn, you'll naturally, accept everybody around you. And then it's kind of like a snowball effect of like more authenticity. Like you could be more and more authentic to who you are, like the deep down hidden who you are. And then the more you do that, the more I feel like you act in divine, I don't know the right word to say, but like it brings through your true expression of who you are. And
Yeah.
it's like you naturally, I feel like when you're bringing that through that authentic perspective of yourself, the more you naturally like attract your real desired like reality,
1000%, 1000%. And a lot of what you're talking about is actually what I've been writing about recently for like something I'm doing. But it's like really powerful when you realize like you are the reflection of the person in front of you. Like if you can love this person for all their darkness and all their like addictive personalities and all of these things, then why can't you love that version of yourself? Because that's something that you need to love within you too.
yeah.
Um, and
And
that's
vice
like
versa.
super simple shadow work 101. Like, right?
Yeah, but I think it's you know what it is
Even
like
light
people.
work too. Because
Well,
sorry, like even light work too, because some people live in the shadow and they don't see their own light. So like I feel sometimes I'm a reflection of like the light for people who are in like that darker area, if that
yeah.
makes sense, without saying it sounding egotistical.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do all the work you want, like I journaled, I'd write letter. Like I feel a lot of the work relies on your relationship with your parents too. Like I feel like that's like one of the biggest things you got to heal, because it's like that's kind of the voices in your head that kind of suppress your authentic self, because it's not necessarily you judging yourself, it's your parents' reaction, in your playing in your head. But I think, you do all this work, but I think it's more of like feeling that awareness, like whether, say with food, like I was always a big guy. I used to be a lot heavier. Um, when you start to like just surrender into like, oh, I'm feeling shame about eating or like whatever, when you surrender into that shame, you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. It's like you allow yourself to feel it, and then you realize like it doesn't really have the power you think it does, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's like it's almost like you're fighting that shame, but once you're aware of it, like you feel that awareness, which is something you can't really like necessarily have a practice of, but once you like feel into it, it just loses its power over you, you know? So it's more of a like shift of awareness, like feeling the shame and being okay with feeling shameful, and then it has no power. I remember when I was in college, I played college football. I used to chew tobacco,
Oh,
and I
sounds
tried to what?
that sounds like half the football team like in my high school. So
Yeah,
continue.
so and I like really wanted to quit, you know? And it's such a see the thing is like smoking and stuff like that is such a hard thing addiction to quit. You know, like if you're doing a hardcore drug and your body's falling apart, I feel like you would see that, but like something like smoking or whatever, it's like you're not really aware of the damage, you know? So it's like it's easy for your brain to be like, "Oh, I deserve this," or you know, it's not you're not seeing the thing that it's doing to you necessarily. But anyway, I remember it was actually some meditation book. I'm not sure who it was. I want to say it was Osho, but somebody asked him like how to quit smoking, right? And this always stuck with me. And he's like instead of like fighting, you know, the fight against not smoking, he's like when you do smoke, like really feel into the energy of like smoking and like the act of smoking and like really feel what it's doing to your body. And it's like the more you're actually aware of it, the more you can move through it, you know?
Yeah.
But it always stuck with me because I started to do that when I was dipping, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I could feel like how it's not good for me because I'm like sitting in the actual act of doing it instead of just like seeking like this relief, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That no, I get that 1000% because I feel like that was how like my awareness shifted after like coming more into my spirituality with like I got called to do combo and like detox through combo. And then like when I went to drink again after that, it was like immediate rejection. Like
Yeah.
if it wasn't through like purging, it was through like my skin, like sweating. Like it's still purging, but you know, try to make it
Yeah.
sound better
Yeah.
instead of vomit. But I think like your body just knows when you need to like cut it off. And also that's true because like when I would drink, it would be like, I deserve this. I've had a long day. And
Yeah.
like literally what you're saying. Um, it's wine, it's made from grapes, you
Yeah.
know, like I'd be like, it's wine. Like, why can't I have the whole bottle? Like that's
Yeah,
how I
like
would
or anything.
would
Like
be.
if you're working like you work in a job you don't like, and you're like, I went through a 40-hour week. Like Friday, you know, I could have a drink, or I could have a cigarette, or I could eat a cake. You know, like
Yeah. Wow,
you
you read
know,
my mind. I
yeah,
was
it's
like,
like the
even
easy.
food.
Yeah, no, I was, you know, I'm still like, there's definitely such an emotional connection to food. You know,
1000%. I didn't realize it until literally like 2 months ago.
yeah,
And I didn't also realize that because of my like alcohol intake for all of my like since I turned went to college and I was like 18 in college, like it's been like alcohol because I was so sheltered growing up that
yeah,
the one party I went to in high school got busted. And so when I got to college, I was like, screw it. I'm having fun. I'm drinking. I'm going crazy, whatever. And so it's literally been like me and alcohol since I turned like 18 and went to college. And when I started like reducing the alcohol intake, I noticed like my sugar intake went up. Like
yeah,
because those like unnecessary carbs I was drinking started to manifest into sugar cravings. And so like then I started like being addicted to sugar. And I was like, what is happening right now? Like cake, cookies, like not goodly made cake and cookies either. So
Yeah.
I was just like, why is this happening? And then like when I'm reading like about the sacral chakra, it was like overindulgences and food, like drugs, all of these things. And then I'm like reading like, why is the sacral chakra causing these overindulgences? And it's like, because you're not speaking your feelings and emotions, and instead you're feeding into like X, Y, and Z. And then I'm like, oh, so really, like this whole time when people have been telling me I'm too emotional and I tell my feelings too much, and then I've been having to hold all of my feelings in, I've been binge eating and binge drinking because of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So,
like a comfort. It's like a security blanket, you know? Or even extra weight is almost like a protection or like a barrier, you
yeah,
know?
I
And
realized that too.
yeah, I mean, I even got like the last probably 5 years, I got into like fasting. I fast like once a week, and it really showed me like how much like I rely on food for like emotional support. Like if I don't feel comfortable, I'll eat, you know, or if I'm bored, I'll eat, you know. It's like it's almost like entertainment, you know,
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
like nourishment.
No, I get that because once I healed a lot of my stuff, like I dropped like 20 pounds, like in
Yeah.
like a month and a half, like 2 months.
Well, it goes back to everything. It's like the more you love yourself and you start making decisions based on loving yourself instead of, you know, fulfilling these like needs or whatever, it's like you'll make the right choice. Because you know, like overeating is not really loving yourself. It's compensating, or it's this comfort. Like if you really love yourself, you find the balance of like what you should be eating and what you shouldn't.
Yeah. Or at least like making it yourself at home instead of buying like a
Yeah,
box
well,
of
it's like
groceries.
even like drinking. I went to college. Obviously, I drank and stuff like that. But I really don't. I haven't had a drink probably in since my son was born, who's like 7.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like I'll have a beer. Actually, I don't even really have a beer anymore because it feels like a waste to me. But I remember like drinking the first night me and my wife had out after he was born. We like went out together or whatever, and I felt like such shit the next day. I was so hungover, and I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm losing my Sunday because I'm hungover. Like, it makes you heavier. It makes you not healthy. It's like, why? Like, I don't need social lubricant. Like, what, so like, why do it? Just
Yeah.
because that's what everyone else does? Like, no, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. I've been like the one in my friends ordering the virgin mojito lately,
Yeah.
but I used to I'm shy by nature. Like I know I don't come off as shy, but I don't I think it's because I'm like the observer and I'm like constantly like watching everybody and the situations that are happening, so it's harder for me to like relax. Also cuz of like everything that's going on too. Like even if I ground myself, it's kind of still hard for me to relax. And like when I was going out, I would drink, 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 trying to relax by being out there. And I'm like, why did I even come out to begin with? Like, why did I even want to come out? I do this all every time I come out. And so like now like that I've just been like more comfortable in myself too, which I realized like then I wasn't really comfortable in myself to be out, but now that I am comfortable with myself, I don't really care how I show up. I don't care if somebody thinks I'm weird because I'm dancing
Yeah.
funny or whatever, or like because I'm dancing and nobody else is dancing, like I'm just going to do it now. And I've noticed like I have more fun with my virgin mojito
Yeah.
than I did with like an actual mojito before. And I don't feel shitty the next day, like you said. And I think it hits us more like a bag of bricks when you're spiritual and you drink a lot too.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember just always like that was like literally the last time I really drank. And I remember just how much I felt like shit. And then, you see people who are drinking. It's like you want to carry yourself like that. And just, it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't feel good in so many ways. And, like I'm almost 40 now. And it's like you're seeing the people who still drank the whole time. They look older, they look like tired, they look, their skin isn't as healthy. Like, I feel great. My body feels good. Like I feel the difference. I see the difference, you know? So it's
Yeah.
like, what's the point? Love yourself more.
Yeah. I think like what really got me too is like when my shaman was like, "You know what alcohol means, right?" And I'm like, "No, what?" And he's like, "In Arabic, it means soul sucker." And I was like, "Oh, this makes so much sense."
Yeah.
And then so like even like when you're talking about it, I'm like, "'Cause it's sucking their souls."
Yeah. No, it is.
I'm laughing, but it's very serious at the same
No.
time.
No, I mean, I know like friends I grew up with, have a drink every night, or like every weekend have to get drunk. And it's like, I don't know. I just want to me, it's almost like, this is the way I am, is like, it's almost like against productivity, like I want to like hang out with my kids and my family and experience them. Like I want to, make stuff. I want to be creative. I want to do stuff with this. I want to, I don't want to be hungover, tired, unhealthy, like out of shape. Like it all kind of goes together. And it's like you want to be as I want to be as productive as I can and do what I want to do.
Yeah. So when like obviously we talked a little bit before, so I want to know because we only have like a little bit longer left, so I want to get like to the stuff. But so you're like a mentor for people or like you have your own course, right? So do you
Yeah.
teach a lot
Yeah.
of people kind of like holding space for them for like these specific things or like where does yours like your Patreon and things like that where did they like kind of
my
lie?
Patreon is kind of a mixture of things. I've actually gone back and forth to it because I'm not a very tech savvy guy. It's not my thing. But it's basically, I teach a lot of different techniques that I've learned over the years that like kind of work with me. And I kind of explain the basics of mediumship, different ways to connect, different tips, different explanations. I actually do work where like I'll bring a spirit through who wants to work and they'll work through the video, and see if people get stuff. I excuse me. I also work like shamanic work, healing work. It's kind of a mix of anything. I also on my social media I teach a lot of classes. I post a lot of the classes. I teach classes in person. A lot of it is I'm a big believer in like keeping everything simple, and like even like I could teach you how to be a medium in 5 minutes if that's my
Yeah.
basic idea of like how to connect. And like if I tell you, I'll even explain it now. Like if I tell you, see, like a lot of people see the movies and believe like mediumship has to be this like grand experience where like, I'm seeing people run into my bedroom all night and it's this like crazy thing. And it's really not. And I always try to tell people like if I tell you to see an apple in your head, can you see an apple?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the basics of, obviously I'm cutting it down, but that's the basics of clairvoyance. That's how you see things. So if you can learn, like me, like if I'm picturing an apple, I kind of see it like right here in front of my in front of my forehead, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So then all you do is when, I build that more, but if you try to connect and have the intention of connecting, that's where you would see things. Like, so if they want to show you something, that's the same place. So it's you learning kind of the edges of where you see things, and then asking for information, having the intention, sitting with spirit, and then them going to that place and showing it to you. Um, it's that simple. It's not much more complex than that. Obviously, there's different techniques, but like if I tell you to feel, I'm more of a clairsentient, like I feel more.
Same.
So if I tell you right now to feel a wet sponge, can you feel a wet sponge?
Yeah.
I feel like everybody has done the dishes in their life, so like they know what a wet sponge is, and it's very like,
I didn't get a dish sponge. I got like one of those big car sponges that came into my hand right now. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, so like,
that fails.
Like right now, most people will say, yeah, I feel it kind of in my hands. But if you like really like engage your consciousness to like go deeper, you can kind of feel the wet sponge through your whole body.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it feels like I'm being washed with like the sponge.
Yeah, so that's clairsentience. That's, spirit uses your whole nervous system. So they can kind of portray everything. So that's all you do. Now that's how you feel things. So if you're aware of that feeling, you can feel spirit. And then, for the three big ones, I do clairaudience as well. So if I tell you to hear an ambulance siren, can you hear it? And then typically I'll explain like, where do you hear it? I kind of tend to hear it like right next to my temple. And then, like when they want to talk to you, that's kind of where you'll hear it, and then like for me personally, I think everybody has different cues. Like for me, like if a spirit's here and wants to communicate, my nose itches. That's their way of telling me that somebody's here and wants to communicate. And then really, to me, it's just you expand your awareness. So the spiritual realm is always around us. It's not in the heavens. It's not below us. It's like another layer of this reality. So all you really do is like, I always tell people, I always like to start from the heart, because I feel like the heart is love, and it brings like the highest possible good. So then if you're in your heart, you start from your heart. I mean, this is my way of connecting. You start from your heart. I send this thought of love up, just because the crown is like the visualization of your connection to source. So you breathe that up, and then I visualize kind of lighting up my aura, and that just like is a light switch, and it lets the spiritual realm see me. And then you just have the intention, all right, start communicating with me. And then once you start a connection, you use what I just said and kind of see what they start to give you. Typically, everybody has one dominant ability my experience. And then, you have the other abilities help you, but it's really typically you work one way, and then you grow. As you grow, your other abilities grow. And that's really, mediumship in 2 minutes.
Mediumship 101.
Yeah. And then it's kind of growing from that. And really, that's all I ever did. Like, I never really, I had mentors. I was lucky. I had very good mentors who were very great evidential mediums. And they, you can kind of, I like to also teach people to have like organization, because that's how I was taught. It doesn't mean it's right. Like typically I'll say, all right, I feel a male or a female. And then I'll ask for like appearance, personality. I try to bring through evidence. As more of a medium, I feel like it's important for people to first know that they're talking to somebody and not have like this general, oh, it's your loved ones and they love you. Like, bring at least one good piece of evidence that's like, oh, there's no way he could have known this. So they could be like reassured. But see, like, that's the whole reason I kind of like to teach, is because I don't want to be the medium. I want you to be the medium. So then you could say, I had an experience, not Pete told me this, like, I think the real like growth comes from when you have your own experience, like, think about your experiences in your life when you remember those key experiences where you're like, holy shit, like, what was that?
Yeah. I'm like watching fairies fly around you right now. So it's like the fifth fairy I've seen as we've been talking. And I'm like, there's fairies all around you.
There's a lot of energy in my house in general.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work in my house. I've always done work on my house. Like, it's built certain, like, there's certain things in certain rooms to bring the right energy in. Like, you could feel, anyone who comes to my house who's sensitive knows see this mirror? This mirror is like,
I can feel it. And like, I've been like watching these fairies go around you. I've like literally seen your aura like brighten, like it's like so many different things, which is why, like, really, when I saw you on TikTok and you were like, hey, if you want a reading, I was like, this guy is legit. I'm going, like, cause I could see like your aura and like the glow. And it reminds me of like me when I'm really in the sauce, like when I'm really in my channel, I'm like, I feel like I have this, like you can kind of see it, like this shimmery, like glow to you that you're like, where did this come from? It just like started coming weirdly, like the last like five months. But like when you like reposted like the comment and channeled for me, I was like, yep. And then he kept going and I was like, yep, I've been feeling that. And then you were like talking about my left arm and I was like, whoa, like this is weird. And then like it was like kind of funny because you picked up like on one of my like Arcturian guides. And the next day I had like a crystal light body scheduled and I'd been feeling this guide like next to me, like, you better get that crystal fixed. And when I did the crystal light body with my friend Brittany, who I did a podcast with on here too, she put like a purple, like they installed like the purple flame in my left hand that like structured my heart crystal and like some other things. So like when you were talking about my high heart, like she had channeled the same thing before our thing. So I was like, and I didn't tell her about it, which is weird. So I was like, whoa.
Wow. That's
so cool. And then I was like, wait, do you channel aliens too? Like, they don't like being called aliens, but I was like, do you channel extra dimensionals too? And I remember you telling me like, I just channel whoever comes in. And I'm like, I feel that like same.
Well, I mean, like, even going back to like God, the form of God, it's like, I try not to like put a box on it, like whatever has to come, some people kind of get disappointed with that because it's like, they think I'm just a medium and I'm going to connect to their loved one and that's it. But sometimes I get a lot of energetic information. Like I'll feel a guide and they'll kind of tell me what's going on with you energetically instead of just a loved one who's passed. So I kind of, my intention is always to bring like the highest good, whatever you need, like I'll try to, that's what I want to come through. So you evolve more, feel better, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I get that. And sometimes like loved ones, like they have already reincarnated too, like into like somebody in your life. At least I've noticed that. Like this week, I've had a lot of people's loved ones like that they wanted to talk to specifically, but weren't necessarily there to talk to them because they had already incarnated into like their cat or their dog. Like they found it the day of like their parents passing this dog on the street and they couldn't get rid of this dog. And I was like, that dog is your mom, you know? And so it's like not always how you want it to be, but it's exactly what you need.
Yeah. No, I know. And even me, like even me on my own path, like, you know, you see, like you thought you wanted certain things at certain points. And then like afterwards you realize, you know, you probably weren't ready for those experiences yet.
Yes. Thank you.
No, yeah.
Can you please say it again for the people in the back?
No, because it's funny because I'm kind of like feeling that now, like I want to shift and it's like hasn't happened and it's like maybe it's just not the right time, you know?
Dude, you're preaching to the choir right now. Like that's how I feel. Like in this moment, I'm in like the lull. And like all that I keep having to remind myself is trust, surrender, trust, surrender. It's okay. We're good. Like we feel it. We're doing what we got to do. Like I know it's there. We're just like on the cusp of it. Like that's how I feel. I'm on the cusp. It's coming. I can feel it. And then I want to go. I want to like work to get closer to it. But I just keep getting told, rest, trust, surrender, rest. Like even, and if I'm like working and not resting when they're telling me to rest, they give me a third eye headache to the point where I literally have to take a nap. I've realized this recently. I'm like, why do I keep getting this third eye headache? And it's like them like literally screaming at me, we told you to rest.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
That's wild. Oh, gosh, this is great. I feel like, is there anything else that I wanted to cover with you today? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that's been really good so far.
Yeah, it went fast.
I'm like, it's already 3:15? What?
Yeah, I know. It did go fast.
Yeah, like I could just probably talk all day because this is very like intriguing to me. Like I love conversations with people where I can just like, oh, there's another question. Oh, like there's something else. Oh, there's something else here too. Because obviously, like when I am engaged in conversations, I get really excited. And I know people can hear that in my podcast. Like, I'm sorry, like I'm screaming every 5 seconds of excitement and like I'm really high pitched, but I'm very passionate about it. I feel like you can see passions in people, even in you, like how you speak and you articulate like your words to like show your passions. It's like,
yeah, I'm not an excitable guy, but
no.
I don't know. I feel like people feel
you're grounded in your excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel it though. It's like everything you say comes from like here from the heart. And you can also see it in like your eyes when you're talking about it too. Like your eyes like light up in that like type of excitement as well. So if you're not like watch the YouTube too. You can see the fairies.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so tell everyone where they can find you, like about your course if you'd like to, and just like all your general information, I guess. You told me you have a lot like me, so.
Yeah, I mean, you could reach me at Blue Collar Spiritualist on TikTok and Instagram, bluecollarspiritualist.com. I also have links there for my Patreon, which, you know, kind of has some courses. It's courses, I guess you could say. I really just kind of share everything I've ever experienced. You know, I try to put up at least like a video a week. And I do a lot of like solo rants because I have time in my truck. So I'll just kind of like do like solo like podcast rant type things where I kind of talk about, you know, what I'm experiencing with my clients. Because typically there's like collective messages when I work with people. It's kind of like recurring themes throughout the week. So I'll kind of talk about it just to see, because I feel like when I do that, a lot of people come through and say, oh, I'm feeling the same thing kind of. And then I kind of talk about like my own inner dialogue and like what I'm working through and like how I work through things, which people, I guess, find interesting. What am I? Oh, I also started a podcast. I only did like 3 episodes so far. Spiritual Graffiti on Instagram is the name, or on Spotify. I think that's it. I'm probably forgetting something.
So excited to hear this.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm an open book. Like, even if you listen to this and have a question, feel free. Like, I love talking about this stuff, and also like I feel like when I learn other people's experiences, it kind of gives me another perspective and allows me to kind of, look at my experience in a different perspective then, and then it kind of brings me to a greater understanding, because I feel like I still don't really know what's going on,
No, yeah, I totally get it.
No, like I identify with the starseed stuff, and then part of me is always like, yeah, but is there really aliens? Like, or is it like something else? Like, is there something like we don't understand and we're just like limiting it again and like interpreting it as something that it might not actually be,
Yeah, no, so like so it's like not even like I use it as an identity, but like to like help like the 3D, I guess, if you will, like that's identities are basically for like 3D like type of experiences, right? Because everybody always wants to know like, what do you do? How do you do it? Who are you? Those are like the type of things. And really, when I plainly put it, I'm just me. Like, even with you, I'm sure you could say the same. I'm just me, and I'm still discovering myself, and it could change, like, or whatever. But I think it's important because we are always learning and evolving. It's not like we just have one spiritual awakening in our life. We can have multiple Kundalini awakenings. Yeah. We can have multiple things happen. But like with the starseed thing, like with Aya, just to tell you, like, I know we're ending, but just like with Aya, it was like, I saw like, and got that information, like we are a source, and we broke off of source to have physicality. Like my throat, I don't know why my throat's like we all broke off of source, and we all broke off of source to have physicality. And some of those like first incarnations of life, right, was like galactic or like on another planet or wherever. And that's what I remember as being like my first incarnation. So it's like we all have like multiple lives or multiple timelines, and it's all happening at once, which is crazy and blows my mind every day to think about, is that I'm the 12th dimensional mantis being that I'm channeling, that I'm super cool with, like Ashkabar, is really me on another timeline, or like in another, like it's happening right now. That's why I can channel them so effectively. Like that's why I can see myself in Egypt sometimes as Cleopatra, and like how I started to realize that I was Cleopatra in this life, like, and it's like little things that you're reminded of like through your journey that allow you to come closer to yourself. Even when I was seeing myself as like Navajo man, a Navajo man shaman, or like ayahuasca, like, there's certain things that you can take from different parts of your life. But I'm not like, I'm Cleopatra, every day. I'm just like, I'm just me, because that's who I am now. But you can take those experiences and learn from them, because I learned from the whole alien thing every day of my life, essentially. Because it's like higher dimensional frequencies that come in. So like it helps you to really gain perspective on what's happening now while you're going through like this process. At least that's my understanding of it right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
Fun facts to end.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to learn and understand. Even it was funny last night. I feel like connected to the Pleiades. I always feel them kind of working with me energetically and stuff like that. And like last night, I had some free time. I was standing outside my truck and I was looking up at the stars. And I was like, what do you guys want? Like, why do I keep feeling you all the time and stuff like that? Like, show me that you're working with me in a positive way. And a shooting star went across the sky. And I was just like, that was pretty cool.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, even that, like, what does that mean? Like,
Well,
like,
we can get into it more like on maybe your podcast or later,
yeah,
but Pallades for me, like when I'm around Pallades energy, it's very angelic feeling. Like there's a lot of like love and heart-centeredness that
yeah,
comes from the Pallades star system. Like that's where I see um like I've seen different things. I can tell you all day about it. But
yeah,
I don't want this tune in back again where we talk all about this later. But there's so many different dynamics, but even like Yeshua, Jesus, is said to be from Pleiades star system. So
yeah,
the fact that you had such a high vibrational like experience with Jesus is probably like why you've always felt connected to Pleiades and the Palladians, right?
yeah,
So if that's accurate, like we can always be like, is that true, God? And like he's the God saying yes. So I'm like, okay, cool, but take that as your own like truth, your own discernment. But that's like what my personal connection tells me.
yeah. Yeah, I try not to like. I
You're like,
also try to like keep, almost like keep space from everything
yeah,
because it's like I don't want to become this. Like I don't want to like define myself necessarily. Like, oh, that's cool, it's nice. Like, but I don't want to be absorbed into it. You know,
yeah, I get that.
that's just who I am.
It's
I've
like
always,
your own personal discernment, which is why
yeah,
it's so important because like we can like the spiritual community can also get like too caught up in what they read, too caught up in what they see, like and not have their own personal truth and their own personal identity, if you will. Which
yeah,
is where it comes back to like your whole point of like authenticity to
yeah,
self.
and like your perspective is always limited by where you are at that moment.
Mhm.
Like if I'm say having lower vibrational thoughts or whatever, it's like my perspective is limited to that, so I'm not seeing the highest perspective, so
Yeah.
it's not the truth because it's not the whole perspective.
Yeah.
So I don't want to lock into that one perspective and then miss out on what else is going on.
Yeah. Oh,
So
good. That's a good final note. I like that.
yeah,
Yeah, this was great, Peter. Thank you so much
yeah,
for coming on here.
thanks for having me.
Just to reiterate, his Instagram, TikTok, and website is all the Blue Collar Spiritualist, right?
Yeah, blue collar spiritualist, yeah.
No, the Blue
No,
Collar
blue
Blue
collar,
Collar Spiritualist.
yeah,
So you can find him there. And also tune into his podcast, Spiritual Graffiti.
yeah,
Yes, I remembered it. I'm really terrible with these things. So yes. Um, getting better though. So tune into that. And then I will see you guys on Friday for our light language activation. And then again next Tuesday for our next episode. I'm sending you guys love and rainbows. Have a great day. Bye.